The SEALs said it was impossible. The wind was too strong, the target too far, and the sniper rifle in her hands too unfamiliar. But none of that mattered when lives were on the line. Emily Carter took a deep breath, adjusted her aim, and squeezed the trigger. The shot echoed across the ridge, breaking the silence of dawn, and just like that, the man with the detonator dropped, stone cold. A second later, the explosion he'd planned to trigger never came. She'd saved 6 men that day, but nobody saw her flinch as shrapnel from a secondary blast tore through her side. Now, months later, she stood quietly on the gravel of Forward Operating Base Sparrowhawk. Afghanistan uniform crisp, hair pulled back with military precision. She looked like fresh training, like someone who had never seen a firefight. "Newbie?" one soldier muttered, nudging his buddy. "Bet she folds the first time we get mortared." Emily heard them. She always heard them. But she said nothing. She didn't need to. Captain Rhodes, the base's commanding officer, stepped out of the comms tent. His eyes landed on her, a flicker of recognition flashing across his face. He walked over, boots crunching in the dirt. "Sergeant Carter," he said, offering a sharp salute. "Welcome back." "Glad to be here, sir," she replied, her voice steady. She didn't blink, didn't smile, didn't need to. Behind her, the whispers continued. "Wait, did he say sergeant? She doesn't even look old enough. Maybe she's a translator or something." They didn't know. They didn't know that the last time she was in this country, she dragged a 200-pound wounded Marine through open fire. Didn't know that under her. Uniform were 5 scars, 1 for each purple heart. Didn't know that she used to wake up screaming, and sometimes still did. The base was hot, dry, dust settled in your throat like gravel. Helicopters roared overhead, and the smell of diesel hung thick in the air. Emily walked with her duffel slung over one shoulder, eyes scanning every inch of the base like she was memorizing its weak points. She'd been sent here for one reason: to advise and lead a tactical medevac unit. What the brass didn't know was that she wasn't just here to guide. She needed to be back in the zone, back where her hands shook less when they were holding a rifle than when they were pouring a cup of coffee at home. Rhodes led her to the command center. Maps covered the walls. Red markers showed recent insurgent. Attacks intel chatter was loud, and uptick in roadside bombs. Talk of a new cell leader rising. "Your squad's green," Rhodes said, handing her a folder, fresh out of training. "No field time, but smart." He paused. "They're going to look to you for everything." "I'll handle it," Emily said simply. As she left the office, she spotted them, her team, 4 soldiers, barely in their 20s, a female comms tech with a nervous smile, a lanky private still adjusting his gear. They straightened when she approached. "I'm Sergeant Carter," she said, setting her duffel down. "You're under my command starting today." Silence. They were trying to size her up. One finally spoke. "No offense, Sarge, but you look like you just came out of basic." A pause. Then Emily unzipped the sleeve pocket on her uniform, pulled out a medal, and another, and another. 5 purple hearts, each worn and scratched. She set them down gently on the ammo crate beside her. "I didn't get these for folding under pressure," she said. "Now, let's train like our lives depend on it." Because they will. Not another word of doubt was spoken after that. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low behind the mountains, Emily stood alone outside her barracks. She watched the sky burn gold, then fade to black. Far in the distance, a dull thump echoed, the sound of artillery, maybe miles away or maybe not. She closed her eyes. For a second, she let herself remember a boy bleeding out in her arms. The sound of radio static before a convoy got hit. The silence. Then she opened her eyes, back in the present, still. Standing, still fighting. To them, she looked like fresh training. But the desert already knew her name. The photo was black and white, faded at the edges. A little girl, maybe 7, standing beside a tall man in uniform. His medals gleamed in the sun. But it was her eyes that stood out. Wide, curious. The kind of look only someone who hadn't seen war could have. That little girl was Emily Carter, and the man beside her, Major General Thomas Carter, her father. He was a legend in the Army, decorated, respected, a man who believed in duty above all. But at home he was quiet, distant, not cruel, just carved from stone. Emily remembered his boots by the door, always polished, his jackets lined up in perfect order, and the silence that filled the house when he was gone for months at a time. Her mother tried to soften it. Sunday dinners, birthday cakes, letters read aloud at the kitchen table. But the shadow of war always lingered. When she turned 16, Emily joined JROTC. Her father didn't blink, just nodded once. Approval, she thought. But the truth was more complicated. He never wanted her to wear the uniform, never wanted her to follow his path. He'd seen what it did to soldiers, what it did to families. But Emily wasn't following. She was walking into the fire because it called to her. At 18, she enlisted, straight into the Army Medical Corps, no hesitation. Her scores were high, her training reports flawless. But she never bragged, just listened, observed, took notes while others talked loud about being heroes. Then deployment orders came. Iraq, 2007. She stepped off the transport plane into a furnace. Heat rippled off the tarmac. Dust hung in the air like fog. Everything smelled like metal, fuel, and fear. Her unit was posted near Fallujah, tasked with convoy support and field response. It was meant to be routine. Patrols, checkpoints, medical aid. Nothing too heavy. But war doesn't care about plans. Her first mission outside the wire came on a Tuesday. 5-vehicle convoy, supply run. She rode in the second Humvee, gear strapped tight, heart pounding in her chest. The radio crackled. Then silence. Then, boom. The lead vehicle vanished in a cloud of fire, IED. The sound was deafening. The Humvee rocked, tires skidding in the dust. Screams followed. Then gunfire. From the ridge. From the buildings. It came from everywhere. She didn't freeze. Her hands moved before her mind caught up. She grabbed her bag, threw open the door, and ran straight into the open. Bullets kicked up dirt around her boots. Still, she ran. Private Daniels was on the ground, blood pouring from a chest wound. Eyes wide, gasping. She dropped beside him, no cover, just instinct. Her fingers worked fast. Pressure, gauze, injection. She ignored the firefight, the chaos, the hot fear crawling up her spine. Someone shouted her name. She didn't hear it. All she saw was Daniel's eyes starting to roll back. She screamed at him to stay awake, slapped his face, then dragged him behind a blown tire, kept working, kept fighting for his life. By the time air support arrived, 2 soldiers were dead, 3 wounded. Daniels survived, barely. Back at base, she washed the blood off her hands for 20 minutes. It wouldn't come off, not all of it. That night, her captain handed her a citation and a Purple Heart. Shrapnel had torn through her left shoulder. She didn't remember when it happened. In her cot, she stared at the medal. It didn't feel like honor. It felt like failure. 2 soldiers hadn't made it. One had died in her lap. The letters home changed after that. Fewer jokes, more silence. Her mother could feel it. Her sister asked why she didn't smile anymore. Emily said she was just tired. But the truth was heavier. Weeks passed. More missions. More wounds, physical and otherwise. The second Purple Heart came after a mortar attack on base. She shielded another medic from the blast, took a piece of metal in her side. Still finished the triage. Didn't go to the infirmary until everyone else was treated. She earned the 3rd in Mosul. A night raid gone wrong. She carried a wounded captain across 2 rooftops under fire. Collapsed once they reached the evac point. Concussion. Broken ribs. Another medal. The 4th came quietly. No combat. Just a vehicle rollover during a supply run. Her spine took the hit. Months of recovery. Physical therapy. Painkillers. She was offered a medical discharge. She said no because it wasn't over. Because the war didn't end just because the papers said it did. Not for her. Not for the ones who didn't come home. The 5th Purple Heart came years later, in a place no one even knew she'd been. The file was still classified. By the time she returned to Afghanistan in 2023, Most of the soldiers she served with were gone, retired, lost, forgotten. But she came back. Not because she missed it, because she needed to finish something. The fresh recruits couldn't see it. They looked at her and saw a clean uniform, a quiet woman with calm eyes. They didn't see the memories she carried, the pain she buried, the weight of 5 pieces of metal that didn't shine anymore. But the desert remembered her, and soon, so would they. A drone buzzed overhead, scanning the jagged valley below. Dust rose from the convoy's wheels as 5 military vehicles snaked their way down a narrow dirt road carved into the mountainside. Emily sat in the second Humvee again, just like before. Her fingers tapped against her rifle, eyes fixed ahead, posture tense but unreadable. She wasn't nervous. She was calculating. Terrain's tighter than expected, the driver muttered. Radio's spotty, too, said the comms tech beside him, adjusting her headset. Emily leaned forward. If they hit us, it'll be here. Narrow road, limited mobility, no visual cover. She wasn't trying to scare them. She was preparing them. It was the same setup that cost her 3 friends in 2008. Only the country had changed. Suddenly, the lead Humvee stopped. Voices crackled through the radio, something about debris blocking the road. The vehicle's doors opened. Soldiers stepped out cautiously, weapons raised. Emily opened her door, scanning the cliffs above with sharp eyes. Everyone stay alert, she said. The new guys still didn't know when to listen to their gut. She did. Then she saw it, a flash, just for a second on the ridge. Sunlight bouncing off glass. Sniper, she shouted, but the round had already fired. It struck the lead gunner in the shoulder, knocking him down. Then chaos erupted. Gunfire echoed from both sides. Bullets sliced through the air, pinging off metal. The Humvees reversed and lurched. Trying to reposition, the comms line cut, out. Smoke flared from a roadside IED that didn't fully detonate but shook the convoy hard. Emily didn't flinch. She kicked open her door and pulled the wounded soldier from the road. The others hesitated, but seeing her move, snapped. Them into action! Take cover behind the 3rd vehicle, she barked. Comms, try the satellite backup. You cover that ridge! The firefight lasted 6 minutes. To the rookies, it felt like a lifetime. To Emily, it was familiar. Controlled. They pushed through the ambush, regrouping behind a rocky outcrop half a mile off route. The wounded gunner was stable. The convoy had damage but was still mobile. No deaths. For a team that knew, it was a win. But Emily knew it could have gone the other way. Back at base, the young soldiers were quiet. Not out of fear, but out of awe. They had seen her in action now, not just a story. Not just a name. That night, Emily sat alone by the wire fence at the edge of the base. Her hands were steady, but her eyes were heavy, because it was never just about surviving. It was about what it cost. She pulled a small notebook from her chest pocket. Inside were names, handwritten, not part of any report, not in official files. These were the ones she carried, Martinez.Silva.Thompson all. Gone in missions like today's, good soldiers, better people. She wrote one more. Name, the gunner from today, still alive, but almost wasn't. She always wrote them down. It reminded her why she couldn't slip, why she couldn't be the one who hesitated. Behind her, Boots approached, Private Lewis, the comms tech. Nervous, but grateful. Sergeant Carter, she said, hesitating. Emily turned. Yes, Private? I just wanted to say, I've never seen anything like that. The way you moved, called the shots. How did you know where the sniper was? Emily paused. You don't always see them, but sometimes you remember where they'd be? You've been through this before? Emily nodded slowly. A few times. Lewis glanced at the notebook in Emily's hand. Is that your journal? No, Emily said. It's theirs. Lewis didn't ask more. She didn't need to. She stood for a moment, then saluted. Good night. Sergeant. Emily nodded back. Good night, Private. When Lewis left, Emily closed the notebook and stared at the dark hills beyond the fence. Out there, someone was planning the next attack. Someone was studying their patterns, just like she was studying theirs. She wasn't afraid, but she wasn't blind. 5 Purple Hearts didn't make her invincible. They just meant she'd been close, too close, 5 times, and she knew better than anyone. It only takes one, tomorrow. They'd head out again, another convoy, another risk. But tonight, she let herself breathe, just for a moment. Then she stood, turned toward the barracks, and walked back in silence. The metal sat heavy in her locker, not because of the weight, but because of what it meant. Purple Heart number 4. It had come after a medevac run that nearly ended in fire. A downed Black Hawk in enemy territory. Emily had gone in with a rescue team to extract the pilot. They'd flown under fire, landed hot, and sprinted through gunfire to the wreck. The pilot was still alive, barely. Emily had carried him across 50 meters of open ground with a dislocated shoulder and a bullet wound in her thigh. She didn't even realize she'd been hit until after they lifted off. The doctor said she needed rest. The brass offered her an early ticket home. She refused both. Now back on base, she didn't wear the medals. Didn't display them, they weren't decorations. They were memories. She spent her mornings running before sunrise, before the base came alive with orders and noise. Dust kicked up behind her boots. Sweat soaked her shirt, but her pace never slowed. The rhythm kept her focused, kept her sane. By mid-morning, she was back in briefing rooms, studying maps, analyzing satellite photos, spotting ambush patterns that others missed. She didn't speak much in meetings, but when she did, people listened. Captain Rhodes noticed. "She sees the field like it's already happened," he told a fellow officer. "She's not just sharp, she's experienced, the kind that comes with scars." And he was right. Her new squad had started to change, too. Their jokes were tighter. Movements sharper. They watched the ridges now. They cleared every corner like it could kill them, because it could. Emily didn't bark at them. She just showed them, over and over, until they started moving like her. It wasn't about discipline. It was about survival. One afternoon, a routine supply escort turned into a 2-hour standoff with insurgents on a ridgeline. The enemy had the high ground, heavy weapons, and the element of surprise. Emily's unit was pinned down behind a broken wall with the radio jammed and ammo running low. The others panicked. Emily didn't. She crawled under fire to reach a better line of sight, scoped the ridge, and marked 2 enemy nests with red smoke. Then she pulled out her backup radio and called in a drone strike. Precise, fast, clean. The shockwave from the explosion knocked dust into her lungs. But the silence afterward was the kind she welcomed. Her squad stared at her like she was something else, part ghost, part legend. But they didn't know what it had cost. That night, Emily lay on her cot, staring at the ceiling. Her shoulder ached. Old wounds always knew when it was about to rain. Her legs still stiff from the last mission. But that wasn't what kept her up. It was the faces. The ones that didn't make it. The ones that still showed up in her dreams. She reached under her pillow and pulled out a folded piece of paper. A letter she'd written but never sent, addressed to her sister. "If something happens to me, I want you to know I wasn't scared. I was ready, and I was proud. Not of the medals, but of the people I fought for." She folded it again, put it back. Sleep didn't come easy. It rarely did. But she closed her eyes anyway, knowing tomorrow another briefing would come. Another mission. Another set of lives depending on her keeping it together. At dawn, a helicopter landed on the pad with 2 officers from Special Operations Command. Their presence was quiet but sharp. Black folders. Clean boots, eyes like razors. They were looking for someone with field command experience. Someone who could lead a deep recon and rescue op in a border zone with rising insurgent activity. Rhodes nodded once in their direction. "You want her?" Emily didn't blink. When they gave her the details, hostile terrain, no backup, high risk of capture, she said yes before they even finished the sentence. Because this was what she was built for. Not medals, not speeches, but getting people home, as the helicopter lifted her and the new team out toward the mountains. Her squad stood at the edge of the tarmac watching. They didn't salute. She didn't look back. They knew, and so did she. This wasn't just another mission. It was a reckoning for everything she'd survived, for every scar she carried, for every time someone had doubted what she could do. because she might have looked like fresh training to them once. But now they knew the truth. The mountain range didn't appear on most maps. Even satellites had trouble cutting through the storm patterns that blanketed the region. It was a dead zone. No signals, no support, just rock, sky, and silence. That's where they dropped her. Emily's boots hit the ground before the rotors stopped spinning. The special operations team moved fast. 6 men, all sharp, all silent. But they weren't used to her. Not yet. They'd heard the stories. Whispers of a medic who fought like a ranger. The woman with 5 purple hearts. But seeing her in person, calm and small in stature, felt different. The team leader, Lieutenant Marlowe, approached her as the chopper lifted off. "You good with mountain work?" he asked, scanning the ridge. "I've bled in worse terrain," Emily said, loading her gear. They didn't ask anything else. Their mission was simple on paper: rescue an embedded CIA asset whose cover had been blown. The intel said she was hiding in a village taken over by insurgents along the Afghan-Pakistan border. The problem? No roads, no drones, and the asset hadn't made contact in 3 days. By the second night, they were 10 kilometers deep into hostile territory. They moved by moonlight, navigating sheer cliffs and frozen streams. The air was thin. Breathing hurt, but no one complained. At 0400 hours, they reached a cliffside overlooking the village. Through a thermal scope, Emily spotted movement, men with rifles. The village wasn't just occupied, it was fortified. They set up an observation post and waited. Hours passed. Emily stayed perfectly still, her eyes fixed on a narrow alley near the center of the village. Then she saw her, a woman, mid-30s, thin, injured, slipping between buildings under cover of shadow. She moved like someone who'd been in the field too long. "Careful, deliberate, and scared. That's our asset," Marlowe confirmed. "Extraction route?" Emily asked. "We'd never make it out the way we came. Too exposed. So we go straight through," she said. He hesitated. "She's deep inside." "I've been deeper," Emily replied. The team began moving at dusk, quiet as shadows. They slipped through goat paths, crawled under fences, and climbed walls. Emily took point, her eyes scanning rooftops and hands never far from her rifle. A child stepped into their path, barefoot, wide-eyed. Emily crouched, finger off the trigger. The child stared for a moment, then walked away without a sound. They kept moving. Just before midnight, they reached the safe house where the asset was holed up. Inside, the woman was barely conscious, dehydrated, and burned from a small explosive. Emily checked her pulse, whispered to her gently, and stabilized her injuries. "We move now," she said. But the second they stepped outside, it all unraveled. A dog barked, then a shout, then gunfire. The team scattered, returning fire. Emily shielded the asset with her body, dragging her behind a wall as bullets rained down. Marlowe shouted over the radio, "We're surrounded. Nearest evac is 12 clicks east." Emily didn't flinch. "Cover me. I'm taking her out." "You won't make it. Watch me." She hoisted the injured woman onto her back, ignoring the fire burning through her left leg. The same leg that still hadn't healed from her last mission. She didn't care. Step by step, she moved through the chaos, one hand on her rifle, one arm holding the woman. Every breath a battle. A bullet grazed her shoulder. She didn't stop. Shouts echoed behind her. She didn't look back. The evac site was a clearing beyond a frozen ravine. A helicopter was en route, but it would take 10 more minutes. Marlowe's voice crackled through the headset. "We're falling back." "We'll meet you at the LZ." She didn't respond. Her focus was on the woman in her arms, now slipping in and out of consciousness. "Don't die on me," Emily whispered. "I'm not carrying you out just so you can quit." She reached the ravine and slid down the embankment, shielding the woman from the rocks. Blood stained the snow beneath them. Her blood. Then headlights. Insurgents in a pickup, barreling down the ridge. Emily rolled behind a boulder, pulled out a flare, and fired it into the sky. Bright red, a signal, a warning. The truck swerved, stopped. She fired. 2 shots. Both hit. The others in the vehicle scattered, but it bought her seconds. Then the roar of rotors. The helicopter arrived low and fast, kicking up snow as it hovered above the clearing. Marlowe and the team emerged from the trees, laying down cover fire. Emily limped into the open, the asset still over her shoulder. Marlowe grabbed them both, hauling them into the chopper as bullets snapped against the hull. Doors slammed shut. They lifted. Safe. Emily slumped against the wall of the bird, breath shallow. Blood soaked her side. Again. The medic moved to treat her, but she waved him off. "Her first," she said, pointing to the CIA woman. "She's why we came." The team stared at her in silence. No one doubted her anymore. No one questioned the stories. She didn't look like fresh training now. She looked like someone who'd been through hell and walked back out. The base hospital was quiet. Just the hum of machines and the soft shuffle of boots on tile. Emily lay in a dim recovery room, pale under the flickering fluorescent lights. Her shoulder was wrapped tight. A neat line of stitches ran along her side. Bruises bloomed across her ribs like old ink. She'd refused full sedation, just enough morphine to dull the pain, not enough to take her edge. She never liked sleeping under someone else's watch. Not since Mosul. Not since the ambush that took 2 friends and left her under a collapsed wall for 6 hours. A nurse entered, checked her vitals. "You should be resting," the nurse said gently. "I'm not built for rest," Emily muttered. The nurse smiled faintly, then left. Emily sat up, wincing as pain lanced through her side. Across the room sat the woman she'd rescued, the CIA asset. Still weak, but sitting up now. "You didn't have to carry me that far," the woman said softly. "Yes, I did," Emily replied. "It's the job." "No," the woman said. "It's more than that. You don't move like someone doing her job. You move like someone making up for something." Emily didn't answer, just stared at the wall. Because she was right. Emily wasn't out there for glory, or medals, or even duty. She was there for the names she couldn't forget, the ones she couldn't save. Captain Rhodes visited later that day. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept since she left. "You disobeyed direct orders," he said, folding his arms. "You deviated from the evac plan, risked the entire team." "I saved the asset," Emily said calmly. He nodded once. "Yeah, you did." He dropped a folder on her bed. Inside, another commendation. "Another Purple Heart? 5? He asked. 6, she corrected. "They haven't processed." "The last one yet," he sighed. "Most people would have quit after 1. "I'm not most people. No, you're not." He paused at the door before leaving. "They're putting you in for a higher decoration this time. Something bigger than a medal." "I don't need more medal," she said without looking at him. "I need less ghosts." That night, she sat on the edge of her bed, watching the shadows crawl across the floor. Her old notebook lay open in her lap. She added a new name. Not a soldier this time. Amira. The asset. Not just a target, a mother, a linguist, a woman who had stayed behind enemy lines to extract civilian records, risking her life to expose human trafficking routes. Emily hadn't known that during the mission, didn't need to. She would have carried her either way. The next morning, the base mess hall fell silent as Emily walked in. Her arm still in a sling, bandages peeking from under her fatigues. The new recruits watched her like she was carved from stone. Private Lewis stood and saluted. The others followed. Emily nodded once. "Eat up." "We train at 500, someone muttered. "Is she serious?" She heard it. She smiled. Just barely. Later, during the morning drill, she pushed them harder than ever. Obstacle courses, simulated combat, improvised field medic scenarios. Every movement she made was slower now, measured, controlled. But her commands were sharp. Her eyes missed nothing. "You think you're tired?" she said to one gasping recruit. "Try carrying someone who's dying uphill with gunfire behind you." They didn't complain again. Word of her mission spread, not just around the base, but beyond. Intel officers asked to debrief her. A Pentagon rep requested a call. The brass wanted to shine a spotlight, but she turned down interviews, declined speeches. She didn't need to explain herself. Her work wasn't finished. The insurgents who'd ambushed her unit weren't random. The gear they had, the way they moved. It was organized, funded, clean. She saw it before anyone else did. They weren't just militants. They were part of something larger. So she stayed, reviewed drone footage, talked to locals, reconstructed movement patterns. Piece by piece, she began to understand. And then, something broke the routine. A single photo, left anonymously on her bunk. Black and white, old a group of soldiers. One of them, her father, Major General Thomas Carter. But the strange thing wasn't him. It was the man, standing next to him, same eyes as the insurgent. Commander she'd spotted in the mission photos. Same scar across the cheek, Emily. Stared at the photo. Her breath caught in her throat. It couldn't be. She turned it over. One sentence scrawled and faded. Ink. Ask your father about 1985. Kandahar. Operation. Widow's Web. Her hands trembled for the first time in years because she knew that name. A mission buried so deep. Even most veterans hadn't heard of it. And suddenly, the past wasn't done with her. It had followed her into the present, waiting in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered. She held the photo for a long time, not blinking, not breathing. Her father's face stared back at her, decades younger, jaw tight, eyes locked on the camera. The man beside him, older, lean, with that scar carved like lightning down his cheek, was unmistakable. It was the same man from the ridgeline ambush. Emily had memorized his face. He'd been watching the convoy from above, giving silent orders. He didn't flinch when his men died. He didn't chase them when they escaped. He just stood there calculating. And now he was here, in a photograph, next to her father, in Kandahar, 1985. She flipped the photo again, rereading the words like they might change if she stared hard enough. Ask your father about 1985. Kandahar. Operation Widow's Web. That operation wasn't in the declassified records. She'd looked it up once, years ago. Her father had mentioned it exactly once when she was 13. Just the name. Then silence. Now she knew why. Later that night, she pulled her satellite phone from the locked case beneath her cot. Dialed a number she hadn't used in months. Her father answered after the second ring. Emily? She didn't waste time. Who was the man in Kandahar? The one with the scar? There was a long pause. Then, in the flattest tone she'd ever heard from him, he said, You found the photo? I didn't find it. Someone left it. And I need answers. Her father exhaled slowly. Not over the phone. I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you, if he's connected to this insurgency, I need to know what you two did together. Another pause. Then, he wasn't one of us. He was CIA, codename Roanoke. We ran Black Ops together. But something went wrong. What happened? I gave an order I shouldn't have. Men died, civilians too. The agency buried it. But he disappeared. Went dark. And now he's back. I always knew he might be. And if he is, he's not here for a war. He's here for a reckoning. Emily's throat tightened. What was Widow's Web? Her father's voice dropped. A betrayal. He hung up. She sat in silence, staring at the phone in her hand. The air felt colder now, the bass quieter, like the ground itself had shifted under her boots. The next morning, she requested all available classified reports from Kandahar in 1985. Every file was redacted, entire pages blacked out, one after another, but she found something. A survivor report filed under an alias. Operative C, a handwritten note in the margin. He knew the children were inside. He ordered the strike anyway. Her stomach dropped. Who was the he? Her father? Or Roanoke? Later, in the base armory, she checked her sidearm, ran a full inspection, then paused. There was a folded note tucked into her ammo pouch. No one saw who put it there. He's watching. Trust no one. She looked around. The armory was empty. The walls felt closer. She returned to her quarters, sat on the edge of her bunk, and stared at the floor. If Roanoke had returned, he wouldn't come at her directly. He was trained differently. He wouldn't shoot her in the field. He'd break her from the inside. Doubt, fear, confusion, it was already working. But Emily Carter didn't crack. She planned. The next day, she volunteered for a recon op back to the same region. No team. Solo insertion. The brass hesitated. 6 missions in as many months. 5 injuries. A mountain of classified files with her name on it. She gave them one look. They signed the orders. Before she left, she locked the notebook with the names in her footlocker. Added a new one. Roanoke. Unconfirmed. Objective. At Oro 300, she loaded into a stealth chopper. 1 pilot, no backup. Just her. They dropped her 10 clicks from the last confirmed position of Roanoke's cell. She moved fast, sticking to dry riverbeds and ravines. The night was moonless. Perfect for ghosts like her. By dawn, she reached the edge of a bombed-out village. Everything burned. No survivors. No movement except one thing. A fire. Still warm. Someone had been there less than an hour ago. She found the remains of a note in the ashes. Mostly burned. One word. Still legible. Carter. He knew she was coming. She rose slowly, eyes scanning the hills. A single shot cracked across the valley. Not aimed at her. A warning. Then a voice. From the shadows. I knew your father wouldn't come, but I wondered. If his daughter had the same spine, Emily turned. Raised her rifle. Steady hands. Focused breath. The man stepped from behind a shattered wall. That same scar, that same calm. It's not about him anymore, Emily said. It's about you. Roanoke smiled. You think you've come for justice. But you're just another piece on the board. I've buried better men than you. He tilted his head. Not one like me. Then he vanished into the dust. Gone before she could fire. Emily stood alone. Heart pounding. Because now it wasn't just about survival. It was about the truth, and the truth was darker than anything she'd ever faced in combat. Emily stood in the ruins long after Roanoke vanished. The dust from his departure still clung to the morning light, filtering through broken beams and charred stone. Her rifle remained raised, but her mind had already shifted. He was alive. Real. Not a ghost. And he knew her name. She didn't move for several minutes, listening, calculating. If he had eyes on her now, he wanted her to know it. If he let her live, it meant one thing: this wasn't over. It was just beginning. She reached into her vest and activated a secure beacon. Not for extraction, for silence. A signal to tell her command she was going dark. Off the grid, no comms, no questions. Because if she brought this back to base, too many doors would slam shut. Too many fingers would point toward the past, toward her father, and toward a truth no one wanted unearthed. She moved through the remains of the village slowly, methodically, looking not for weapons or signs of the enemy, but for messages. She knew his style now. Psychological warfare hidden in plain sight, and she found it. A burned photo nailed to a doorframe. The same squad from the first image, her father's team, but this one was different. She was in it, or someone who looked exactly like her. Same jawline, same eyes, only this woman wore Soviet fatigues. Dated 1986. Impossible. Emily stared at it, her pulse steady but cold. He was playing games, deep ones, ones that bent the lines of history, memory, and blood. By nightfall, she had made camp in a cave just south of the ridge. No fire, no light, just silence. The notebook rested on her knee. She opened it, ran her finger down the list of names, then added a line beneath Roanoke's. Target confirmed. Objective shifted. She didn't sleep. Her thoughts spiraled, wrapping around every mission that had felt off, every detail that didn't fit. From Iraq to Kandahar to her latest extraction, it all traced back to her father, back to Widow's Web. By morning, she had a plan. She returned to base under a false call sign. No escort, no salute. Just walked through the gates like a ghost in uniform. Captain Rhodes met her halfway across the tarmac. You went dark, he said. I had to. You saw him, didn't you? She nodded once. And? He's not done, she said. And neither am I. He studied her. There's a hearing. High Command wants to question your movements. Too many flags in your reports. Let them. You're not worried? Emily looked him in the eye. If I was worried, I wouldn't still be standing. In the hearing room, brass from multiple branches lined the table. Cold suits, sharp eyes. Her file sat thick on the desk, decorations, commendations, incident reports, and now, suspicions. One general leaned forward. Sergeant Carter, are you aware that your recent actions have triggered 3 internal reviews and 1 counterintelligence alert? Yes, sir. Do you deny deviating from protocol in your last 5 missions? No, sir. Why? Because I wasn't hunting ghosts. I was hunting facts, a second officer frowned. And what facts would justify operating solo in a classified zone? She reached into her pocket and placed 2 photos on the table. Her father, Roanoke, the burned image of herself in Soviet gear. The room went silent. What is this? History that was buried, Emily said. And now it's fighting back. Murmurs. One colonel stood. You're implying a former CIA asset is leading insurgent factions using Cold War intelligence? I'm not implying, she said. I'm confirming. Then why haven't we intercepted him? Because you're looking in the wrong place. He's not hiding from us. He's moving through us. Silence again. Then for the first time, her father entered the room, uniform perfect. Eyes dark. Emily, he said. She stood but didn't. Salute. You should have told me he looked at the others in the room. She deserves the truth, he said, then turned back to her. I gave the order in Kandahar. I believed Roanoke was acting under CIA authority. I was wrong. He used the mission to cover arms deals and eliminate witnesses. When I found out, I tried to stop it. They shut me down, buried the files, threatened everything. And you stayed silent? To protect you. No, she said. You stayed silent to protect yourself. He didn't deny it. Outside the hearing, she walked alone across the parade ground. The air felt different, not lighter, heavier, because now she knew the truth, and the weight of it was hers. Later, in a closed debrief room, Rhodes handed her a sealed envelope. What is it? Authorization, he said. From the top. They want this finished? Covert? Fully, Emily opened it. Inside. Coordinates. A location deep in the mountains. Unmapped. No satellite access. Just 1 line of intel. Final nest. Roanoke confirmed. No backup. Optional extraction. She folded the paper, slipped it into her vest. Rhodes looked at her. You going? She nodded. He started this in blood. I'll end it the same way. Then she picked up her gear, checked her sidearm, and walked out the door, toward the last mission, toward the last name she'd ever have to write.